You're listening to Exploring Sustainable Values with your host, Norman Chella, on ASEAN Speaks by Maybank. Throughout this show, you've listened to sustainable values at multiple levels: the individual, the leader, and now the system itself. For example, we've heard from a number of individuals on what Islamic finance, one such field in parallel with sustainable values, means to them. They highlighted the emphasis on values in finance in general and how their experiences shape their financial decisions. Dr. Amr Rahman shared with us his thoughts on what a leader needs to have to lead an organization based on shared values. James Vaccaro gave a detailed overview of the systems that make up the world of finance and what we need to do to implement effective, sustainable finance practices throughout the system. Now, let's take a look at current times. What are some real events and initiatives happening right now? And about the future? What can we look forward to in Islamic finance? Our upcoming guest can provide some unique insights on what is happening in this field, especially close to home.
So my name is Dato Rafique Merican. I'm the Group Chief Executive Officer, Islamic Banking for Maybank, as well as the Chief Executive Officer for Maybank Islamic Berhad. My responsibility covers the strategy and direction for the Islamic banking business for Maybank Group.
One of the elements for this episode is a refresher on the definition of Islamic finance from Dato Rafique's perspective, as well as one of the most important principles in parallel with it, which you'll hear in a second. It sets the stage for what Maybank Islamic has observed in recent times and gives us an idea of what's to come.
So for Islamic finance, we are premised on the principles of what we call Sharia. And the broad intention here is to actually realize benefit and to prevent harm. So in essence, Sharia promotes sustainable life and responsible relationships between human and the environment. There are 5 universal elements within the objectives of Sharia or Islamic finance, right? One of it is faith, but it relates to life, intellect, and wealth. And in the context of ESG, it is about environment and the planet. There is a high level of overlap. The other one is society. And for the objectives of Islamic finance, it's the community. And then the other one is on the governance side. If we are conscious that we want to actually promote benefit and reduce or prevent harm, then there must be a certain level of governance and responsibility about how do we actually disburse our financing to our clients, in which sectors, and whether it's something that we can or cannot do. So there is a fine balance in that. Sometimes people refer to it as sustainability, actually has a strong connotation about not just the present, but also for the future. There is a high level of knowledge and awareness that we need to actually put through. When it comes to Islamic finance, beyond the profit side, there is also the part whereby we have a responsibility to the community.
The mission is noble for both Islamic finance and these ESG principles. But what are some challenges in implementing them?
There continues to actually be segments which cannot be served the way that traditional finance look at granting credit. Within Islamic finance, we have instruments such as thrift or zakat, or charity, which is sadaqah, and then we have endowment or waqaf. That can be tools that can actually be used in order to address the underserved segment, and with the view that if we can actually nurture them, one day they can actually go to the level whereby they can go into the mainstream. So that's one challenge. When it comes to embracing sustainability, we have a higher, greater sense of purpose. We may enable others to either do good or do harm. And the way that we actually screen through the financing that we give is a good starting point. The challenge then is internally, we must set a good sense of purpose about what we want to actually do to realize the benefit, not just to reduce harm. Because to do right, you need to have the whole organization focus towards wanting to do this good, right? ESG can be quite a broad subject matter. It is the journey that we have to go through together with our clients in order for us to actually realize this more embracing impact and outcome that we need to invest not just in our own knowledge and understanding and capacity, but to be able to engage with our clients and work with them. This is over and above what you do on a business as usual basis. It requires extra for all of us. What is the level of convergence between Islamic finance and the halal economy? Historically, it has actually grown very distinct from each other. The halal industries do not need to actually use Islamic finance for their financing requirements. The certification does not specifically say you must use Islamic finance. only about 10% of the halal sectors actually use Islamic finance. And that becomes something that is an opportunity for Islamic finance institution. One of the reasons why we did the Global Connect Forum is to actually give greater awareness, visibility that Islamic finance is able to also assist the halal economy to grow at a much faster rate. What we see over the next 2 to 3 years is that in terms of growth, the halal economy is expected to grow to about 2.4 trillion from the current 2.02 in 2019. And this is a cumulative average growth rate of about 3.1% per annum. Now, for the Islamic finance industry, it is anticipated to grow by about 5% per annum, cumulative average growth rate to about 3.69 trillion all the way to 2024. The view that we take is that if Islamic finance can be part and parcel of the growth of the halal economy, those two industries can actually grow at a higher anticipated pace than currently what we see. So that will also help to drive the growth of the halal economy. And on the supply side, which is coming from regulatory as well as national policies, we did see Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Malaysia about greater focus in wanting to grow the halal economy in order to meet the growing demand. So prospects-wise, over the next 2 to 3 years, I am very optimistic, notwithstanding that we have challenges that industry players will need to actually go through in the coming years.
So, there's been a ton of activity globally in the world of Islamic finance. On one hand, we have Islamic finance itself, set to grow with a positive outlook. On the other hand, we have the halal economy, which describes the different sectors where core products or services are affected by Islamic ethics and law. But remember, it's not necessary to use Islamic finance for their requirements. Many countries around the world have their own halal economy, and addressing this at a global scale is a huge opportunity for Islamic finance. These two fields are distinct after all. Honing in into Malaysia in particular, Dato Rafique outlines the groundwork for what had happened to the industry in the past 2 years as observed by Maybank Islamic.
Due to the impact of COVID-19, it's actually been quite challenging for the halal economy as well as the Islamic finance industry. And in 2020, for example, we did see about an 8% contraction. But in 2021, with economic activities resuming, as well as the uplifting of certain restrictions and so on, we did see growth coming back, especially for some sectors within the halal industry, like food, pharmaceuticals, fashion, to some extent travel, and then media and recreation. So that came back by about 9%. That's what we saw in 2021. And we think that this growth will continue in 2022 with travel gradually picking up momentum back to where perhaps it was prior to the pandemic.
This can also be seen on a general scale as well. In Malaysia, lockdown hindered our routines, made it mandatory to stay at home for fear of COVID and the safety of our high-risk loved ones. And whatever plans we had made before then, well, had dissolved. It happened for families, friends, and in the context of finance, that meant economies took a downturn. Everyone was affected. But come the opening of 2022, greater safe practices are encouraged, and that gave us a chance to expand our routines in public.
The challenge for us was we wanted to ensure that all our customers continue to be in a position whereby they can sustain themselves. With the movement restrictions, businesses suffered. We were cognizant of the fact that without some level of assistance from Islamic financial institutions, then these customers may go through hardship, if not completely go under. As an industry, we took the view that without customers, where would we be? And during the last 2 years, there was quite a number of programs, moratoriums, repayment assistance that was intended to actually help many of these customers, small to medium-sized industries, business banking, corporate banking clients, in order to help them get through this difficult period.
It's a sign of integrity to, despite these challenges, provide support to the public regardless of their situation. Whether these customers range from workers to SME owners, entrepreneurs, freelancers, and those unable to work, chances were provided, and they could get access to it. Now, we have the observations, we have the challenges, and we have the responsibility of upholding these principles. How do we tackle them?
So what has happened is that we have actually been publishing our sustainability report since 2010. So we do quite a number of corporate social responsibility events, but sustainability takes on a higher level of expectation and conviction as well. we actually announced 4 ESG commitments so that the group can actually align our efforts towards these 4 main broad commitments that you see. The first one is we are a financial institution. We have insurance entities, we have investment entities, we have quite a number of other entities within the Maybank group, not just banking. Our intention here is to mobilize 50 billion in sustainable finance by 2025. And last year, we managed to book in about 13.6 billion. So we're off to a very good start. The second commitment that we made was we wanted to improve the lives of 1 million households across ASEAN by 2025. The third commitment that we made is to achieve a carbon neutral position for Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions by 2030 and net zero carbon equivalent position by 2050. So what we have done is under Scope 1 and Scope 2, we have actually purchased renewable energy certificates. One of the first financial institutions to actually do so. So that will address our Scope 1, Scope 2. And then on Scope 3, currently working with consultants in order to actually assess our carbon footprint emissions. So that will be announced in time. And then the other one is to achieve 1 million hours per annum on sustainability and delivering 1,000 significant sustainable SDGs related outcome by 2025. So what we have actually done at Maybank Islamic, for example, in terms of the financing, so a big chunk of that 13.6 billion also it comes from doing it under Islamic Finance format. When it comes to improving the lives of 1 million households across ASEAN, we have our Tirth of Zakat programs. And we started this in 2013. And over the years, we have actually set aside about 12 million of our Tirth in order to actually benefit about 150,000 households across ASEAN. So now we have programs running to benefit the underprivileged communities so that we can actually commit and actually improve and realize the outcome under our second commitment. Even the trading of commodities in order to enable Islamic finance, because of the Sharia contract that we have, is we've started to move towards more environmentally friendlier commodities in order to enable the Islamic transactions that we work with the commodity traders. And when it comes to committing hours in terms of training programs under our outreach programs, so last year, for example, for the whole of Maybank Group, we committed about 1 million hours per annum, and we managed to achieve about 1.6 million man hours by Maybank staff on the subject of sustainability and delivering the outcomes based on SDG.
Until now, you may think that these numbers are very grand, i.e., it's kind of hard to visualize that when we're on the ground going about our routines and communities. Imagining the state of the nation is a challenge when we're just one person. I asked Dato Rafique to give us a Maybank Islamic example for how this impact these small decisions of committing to principles looks like when we decide to do something about it.
If you take a Maybank Islamic credit card, 0.1% of your spend, Maybank Islamic will set aside towards a charity fund. And last year, for example, we managed to collect about 1 million ringgit. And how we used that 1 million ringgit was we actually donated equipment necessary for hospitals to combat COVID-19. And then we have set aside about 300,000 for Islamic social finance. What happens under this Islamic social finance is that we want to be able to actually provide microfinancing in order for small businesses either to get back onto their feet or to grow their business. Last year, for example, the TIF amounted to about 25 million ringgit. Some portions of it we give to the religious authorities, but a big chunk of it we actually give back to the communities through programs such as what I mentioned we call Regional Ramadan Relief. And these programs include either direct assistance for their living expenses, also expenses for education for the underprivileged community. We have set aside funds over the last couple of years to assist those children going through their UPSR or SPM all the way to university. And we do have quite a number of them that have gone on to tertiary education. And our intention here is that today they are recipients of our contribution, the TIF contribution. If the program is successful, one day they themselves will become contributors in their own right. Quite a number of customers actually benefited from the moratorium. Most people would have heard of it, by the hundreds of thousands actually benefited from the moratorium. It is relatable to the man in the street. It is relatable to micro enterprises from some of these initiatives that we have actually done at Maybank Islamic.
One thing to note here, there must be a balanced outcome for the different industries, needs of various communities within each nation. The priority here is inclusivity. With different needs come different solutions. Some may need healthcare, while others need education. But the overall sentiment is this: no one is left behind. Dato Rafique explains more in greater detail.
So in the case of footprint within ASEAN, priority could be education. Some could be purely for day-to-day living expenses. Because without the ability to actually address daily needs, education becomes a second issue. Right? You need to survive first. Being able to send your children to school sometimes may not be high on your priority list. So we wanted to address the part whereby can we give them sufficient support for them to actually live on a day-to-day basis, and then subsequently for the children, whether we can actually allow their children to progress so that they can actually break that cycle of hardship that they are going through. I think what we did for the community was in 2020, in April, if all of us are confined to our homes, then our favorite hawkers and vendors will not be able to survive because we actually patronize their establishments. And what we did was during that period, we actually established what we call Sama Sama Local, a platform to connect vendors in need and all the hawkers that are serving us in the past to the Maybank customer base. So if you go through our M2U platform, for example, you will see Sama Sama Local. And we were able to actually assist quite a number of hawkers and vendors to survive during this difficult period. And also to introduce to them digital banking and e-commerce. So we had this customer base that is on M2U, Maybank customers, and our ability to connect them with the vendors at no charge. In fact, for within 10 kilometers radius, we actually even cover their transport. So I think that has also benefited quite a segment of the community that went through a period of hardship.
It's great to see this in action. Families can maintain and better their livelihood. Lives were sustained. Small businesses and entrepreneurs could maintain their day-to-day earnings well with Maybank Islamic's involvement. What we see here really reflects what they stand for, rooted in Islamic values to drive a sustainable future. It also speaks to sustainability as a definition. How can we provide for the environment, community, and ourselves well, and for the long term?
It's a choice, right? One of the key principles that we actually said was important was it must start with ourselves. And we have about 42,000 employees. And the view was for us to actually be true to ourselves and walk the talk. That was one element that we had. And we went through a massive learning exercise as well, because we needed to understand the elements of what are the differences between CSR and sustainability, and what was the outcome they wanted to achieve. Because if the targets or the commitments that we make are modest, then for the size of Maybank, the outcome would be underwhelming. So we wanted to reach out and develop something which will drive impact. But we started with ourselves first. One thing we realized was that the knowledge within sustainability is if you start with, there's a lot I don't know, then people are more open to sharing with you. Gradually, you start to feel that some of the things that you used to do, it wasn't necessary. Like, for example, we quickly transitioned from single-use plastic, right? Plastic bottles for meetings to having glass bottles where the water is refilled. And then when it comes to your purchases, you're more conscious as you start to develop this knowledge base and capacity. And once you become aware, the people around you also feel what you're trying to actually do and say. And hopefully they themselves will adopt similar practices at some point.
This is a great callback to our previous episodes. The leader leads by example and upholds these principles of sustainability. And the agency taken by entities within the financial ecosystem, if with sustainability as a high priority, will eventually influence their neighbors to do the same. Embodying those, and in turn the behaviors of the people, is a good shift in the right direction. Influence, then, is a great tool to help with pushing sustainability, because, essentially, it's a behavioral thing, right? People must have an inherent desire to push for principles of sustainability before they take action on it. That is impact at its finest.
When it comes to Islamic financing, because it's riba, and we don't do industries which we deem as harmful to society. Whether it's gambling, whether it's tobacco, alcohol, Islamic finance will not finance those activities. We have been able to, because we have progress coming from our clients, we are able to actually benefit the community in many ways for the business that we do. The other one is when we come to driving an outcome that we desire, there is the expectation that we must take on the platform to speak about it. If we want to actually say that Islamic finance wants to drive a positive outcome for future generations, then Maybank Group in general must be comfortable to take the platform to engage with not just stakeholders within Malaysia, but also globally. So when we did the Global Connect Forum, it was to talk about uh, sustainable finance and the impact on the community. We found that if we're able to actually link like-minded individuals, entities, then the outcome can be much greater. But you must want to do it. You must be humble enough, bold enough at the same time to share, right? And hopefully, over time, we're able to actually create a momentum whereby uh, others, like-minded individuals and entities like ourselves, will also be on board and commit to their own part as well.
So, what is there to think about from all of these conversations we had in this and the previous episodes? From people to organizations to systems, and now the present time. Exploring sustainable values involves not only the conversation of money, financial vehicles, and of making the right decisions as an individual. It's a personal journey of ensuring we express the values we believe in. It is that we are mindful of what we're diving into, that we are conscious of our consequences, and that we decide it with a noble cause in mind.
If your values and your purpose and your intentions about creating a more sustainable future, then it's a much easier conversation. Because then the question is, how can we go on that journey together? So Islamic finance calls for a just and ethical practice and being able to grow sustainably. Because otherwise, you have communities whereby they are marginalized. History will tell you that over a long period of time, it will not hold. Because the moment you have the big gap between those that have and those that do not have, then there will be an imbalance. Because we have a big chunk of our customers who are non-Muslims, but because of alignment in values, they believe in the things that we want to do, and we believe in the things that they want to create, then it's universal because we want to do good. We want to prevent harm. So through Islamic finance, mutual objective can actually be achieved. And then Islamic finance is very closely linked to the principles of ESG. It's about community, it's about the planet, it's about the environment. And hopefully through the financing that we provide, through the support that we receive from our customers, with our growth that we're seeing for Islamic finance over the last decade or so in Malaysia, as well as globally, the benefit that is derived within Islamic finance industry can actually benefit the community at large. So those are my aspirations, those are my thoughts, and we're working towards achieving those kind of outcomes. If we can actually get closer to some of those aspirations and the outcome, then we would have actually achieved something great. I do hope that others as well will take on the mantle and take on the platform to speak about sustainability and coming from the Islamic finance industry. We're doing our part, and we hope that other industries, not just within financial services, but coming from either the oil and gas or coming from the plantation industry or even from the property development industry, they will do their part and we can achieve that outcome that we desire.
Special thanks to Dato Rafique Merican for providing us with a great overview of the Islamic finance space, as well as some wisdom for us to take away from this episode. And thank you to yourself too, our listener, for listening to this limited run series, Exploring Sustainable Values. This is your host, Norman Chella, on ASEAN Speaks by Maybank, signing off. Take care. The contents in this episode are for educational purposes only and should not be taken as solicited advice. Maybank, as well as all parties mentioned in and connected with this episode, is not responsible for your use of the information contained in or linked from this episode. The contents showcase the personal opinions, experiences, and stories of contributors and do not reflect Maybank's stance in Islamic finance. Please seek an Islamic finance consultant for more detailed information to provide you an informed perspective in this space.